The James Webb Space Telescope has been wowing the planet with amazing images from the deepest depths of the cosmos. Here to share the latest from outer space. This is happening, folks. 5 brilliant scientists from NASA and the European Space Agency, Laura Betts, Nicole Colon, Dr. Amber Strawn, Dr. Stephanie Milam, and Dr. Macarena Garcia Marin. Thank you so much. How'd I do?
Perfect.
Pretty good? All right. I think this is a moment. I think we need to, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I was a geeky, nerdy kid. And I don't know about you all, but back in the day, we weren't the popular ones. We weren't the ones that got to flex. We didn't get the panels. But here we have 5 scientists, and I say nerd as the highest compliment. Give it up for the 4 NASA scientists and the European Space Agency. Treat me like an unfrozen caveman lawyer, a simple man. Webb, the telescope. First of all, before we talk about the images, why is this such a huge deal for us, Amber?
Oh, well, first of all, it's the biggest and most powerful telescope we've ever sent to space. It was literally designed to help us answer some of the biggest questions in astronomy today. And with just the first few months of science operations, we are already learning things about astronomy that are blowing our minds, changing the way that we understand the universe. Yes, so one of the things that the telescope was designed to do was to look far back in space, and therefore far back in time, to see the very first galaxies that were born after the Big Bang. Part of space we've never seen before. And the galaxies that we're finding there are completely different than what we expected. They're bigger, they're brighter. We don't really understand why we're seeing what we're seeing. So lots of fun mysteries still to solve.
And you all unveiled an image, a new image today at South by. What was the discovery, the image that you showed?
Do you want to go for it?
I like it. You can tag team. It's good. Come on in. We're going to get everyone inside.
So the image unveiled today was a beautiful image of a Wolf-Rayet star. So that's a type of stars that they're incredibly massive, incredibly bright, really. The one we showed is like 30 times our sun, so it's really big. And then when stars are this massive, they live fast and they die like a supernova, like with a big explosion. So
rock stars.
Rock stars, yeah, definitely.
They flame out, unfortunately. Yeah.
Exactly.
But when they burn bright.
They burn very bright.
And they leave a legacy. Let me just continue now that I've gone with the metaphor.
But they do leave a legacy because they shed all this gas. The gas converts into dust, and that dust enriches the environment. And then from that, you can create all the elements are formed of, and you can create new stars and perhaps even planets. So yeah, it's a beautiful metaphor. I like it.
And there's a lot to talk about. But Nicole, we have you. And you study something as an exoplanet specialist. All right. And what we're learning also, thanks to Webb and thanks to what we're seeing for the first time, is exoplanets. The fact that this universe that we're in, it has more than we ever imagined. So as you spend your whole life, when you see these images, what has blown your mind?
Well, just to start, we know of over 5,000 exoplanets. So these are
only
planets.
5,000?
Only 5,000 so far. But that's just in our galaxy. So our galaxy is billions of stars. The likelihood that there are billions of planets out there is very high. So we know of billions and billions at this point. And so when you look at these images and you see these beautiful details where we can see material that's going to form new stars and eventually new planets, like just imagine how much material might be forming these planets. Like take that, all these images, we're looking at one tiny part of the sky every time. So we're seeing.
And from that one tiny, you get this treasure.
Yes, you get treasure trove of dust that will turn into stars and planets eventually. And so it's mind-blowing, even to someone who's studied this, for years.
Even for all of you, when you see this, is it, Stephanie, is it like a humbling? Is it a humbling? Not even as a scientist, right? But just our place in the universe, who we are, what we know, what we thought we knew. I mean, for you, when you see this, is it like, okay, I got to start from scratch?
Pretty much every time. So every time we get a new image and new spectra from the James Webb Space Telescope, we learn something new. I don't know that we've had one observation yet that we've been like, oh, okay, that's kind of what we expected.
Call that a star?
Yeah. it's always revolutionizing our field, and we have learned so much. And we're not even a year into science yet, and we are rewriting textbooks across the board.
Wow. And Laura, you've worked before with National Geographic, and looking at these images, and I know we're going to see some images from the Webb telescope. For me, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it, and it's like, is that a painting? Is that like, it looks like artistry to me in a way. And what the telescope is doing and the rendering, it's like art in space. Is this just me being a geek, or?
No, you're spot on. It's absolutely incredible what our teams are doing to represent the science that they need to find in those different images, and the work that they're doing at the Space Telescope Science Institute, which is where our Mission Operations Control Center is. So that's where all the data is being fed back to. It's incredible. And Maka, I'm sure you could add a little bit more.
Yeah, so I agree with you. There's beauty in space.
It's like stunning. I like my jaw's on the floor.
But for all of us, we see them very often. So there is a lot of thought and a lot of work behind how to put together these images to make them not only very appealing to the eye, but also scientifically relevant and important. And they are public. So I highly recommend everyone who doesn't have it or doesn't see them yet, go online, download them, zoom them, just really enjoy all the details, because they are very...
Make them the background of your phone,
Make it
your
the
computer.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that, right? But back in the day, as an old head, we had the screensavers, and it was the graphic images, right? It wasn't real. And now you sit there like, this is even better than the screensaver. This is real. But what's really exciting about this also is it's not just the United States. This is what I call a multicultural coalition of the willing to explore space. And how does with the European Space Agency, how did that, if you will, that superhero partnership come about to create this?
Well, the superhero partnership, and it's NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency.
Okay,
so
Canadians, I didn't forget you.
Yes.
I didn't forget you.
And how it came about is because when you want to do something this big and this difficult and this relevant for humanity, essentially, you need to grab together all your strength and all your forces and all your minds to make it possible. So it really required 3 agencies, thousands of people, many different countries to work for decades to actually get
how many
where we
years?
are now.
How many years?
I mean, the initial concept for Webb were before the Hubble was
Before
launched.
Hubble,
So it was
late
on the
80s,
90s.
Yeah.
Wait, 80s?
Late 80s.
So we're talking about 30 years,
Yeah, the concepts.
hundreds of
concepts.
people,
Thousands.
thousands of people,
20,000 people.
20, and how much money?
The U.S. Component was about 10 billion.
10 billion.
Spent out or spread out over those 3
And would you say, and as because people always say, and you know this, why are we investing money in this? Is the return going to be worth the investment?
I mean, look for yourself.
I would also challenge people to think about Hubble. Was Hubble worth it? And I think Hubble's been operational now for over 3 decades, and at the end of the day, Hubble costs probably a little more, in real world dollars than JWST. And I think if you ask a random person on the street, was Hubble worth it? That money spread out over that amount of time ends up being less than a cheap cup of coffee a year for every U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
So is it worth a cup of coffee a year? I think the average person would probably say yes.
All right, so the proof is in the pudding, and people will say, don't tell me, show me. And of course, this is how most Americans speak. Like, show me. And we have an image, and walk us through these images. We have them. All right, so the first image is the newest one that you unveiled at South by Southwest. What are people looking at right now?
So yeah, at the very center of this image is a star. So it's always important to think about scale and context when you're talking about astronomy, right? So this image, star at the middle, like our sun, so similar to our sun, and the light from the star has been traveling through space for over 15,000 years to get to our telescope. And then surrounding the central star there is dust. And so this star has shed its outer layers in this dusty structure that is in this image. And this is, I think, one of the most beautiful concepts in astronomy. This idea, it's Carl Sagan's star stuff idea, right? The idea that the
Billions and billions.
Billions and billions, and this idea that the iron in your blood and the calcium in your bones was forged inside of a star.
We are made of star stuff.
Exactly, and that's literally viscerally true. And I think that's a beautiful concept, and these beautiful images show us that, show that in action.
And it's carbon. Okay, I took astronomy in college. I'm an old head. Let's see this. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Chan?
Chons, but there's also phosphorus and sulfur.
Oh, all right. Come on. Let's just calm down. Like, I'm a simple man.
But the building blocks.
But the
yes,
building blocks.
Exactly.
I have to ask a question about black holes because Stephanie, I must. We're finding out. We see these images, and the center in every galaxy there's a black hole, and with studying this now, this is the chicken or egg question. What came first? Do you think, will this lead to really answer it in our lifetime? Like, what came first? What is a black hole? What can we do with a black hole? Can we travel in time? Interstellar.
Absolutely, that is a quest that we have in all of astrophysics, is figuring out whether black holes are the starting point of a galaxy, or if galaxies evolved to them, what is the triggering mechanism, what drives them, what feeds them, and we're at this realm of discovery space with the James Webb Space Telescope that we are able to study the evolution of galaxies, how they've evolved from the very first ones in the universe to what we can see in our own nearby universe today. And with that, we're getting all types of new insight on the evolution of black holes, a little bit on dark energy, and we're just scraping the surface right now. And I think over the next year or two, we're only going to have more and more questions that's going to seed how to answer these questions more and more fruitfully with this observatory, but also with the next generation space telescopes.
Well, speaking about possibilities and questions and answers, the cartwheel. Describe to us what we're seeing here with this image, which is described as the cartwheel. Who wants to take it?
I can take it.
Take it.
Go for it.
So the cartwheel, it's a beautiful galaxy that many years ago, it was a spiral galaxy, and at some point the smaller galaxies sort of had a collision with it at a high speed, and it sort of reshaped the spiral galaxy into what you see now. So the spiral arm sort of morphed into these sort of spokes, and you have the outer ring and then the central part. So it's really a prime example of, all galaxies at some point of their lives, they go through these interacting phases with other galaxies, and some of them are dramatically changed, like this one. At the center of it, as you said, a supermassive black hole that interacts with the environment, and really, as Stephanie was saying, we don't really know
how
they are formed yet. But there is an interaction with the environment, there's an interplay between the supermassive black hole and the galaxy around, and I think every data we take and every effort we make, it will help towards the solution to this question.
The question I must ask, as a child of the 80s and 90s and growing up with science fiction, the images that we've seen and what we're learning, the possibility of some form of life outside in the galaxies, is it ridiculous? Is it possible? Does this make it more possible? Your thoughts. I'm going to throw it to the crowd.
I'm happy
Go,
to
Nicole.
start. Yeah. I mean, we have galaxies far, far away, right, that might have life. But, it really boils down to numbers in a way. There are billions of stars in our own galaxy. We know of 5,000 planets in our galaxy, over 5,000. But we're not done looking in our own galaxy alone. So the likelihood is high that there are billions of planets out there. When you factor in that there are billions of galaxies.
Billions
on
of
top,
galaxies,
with
5,000 planets in our galaxy.
So the numbers
do the math.
when you do the math, it literally is astronomical, when you think about it.
Well played.
Yes. That there are billions of planets out there. And so the likelihood is high that, one of them, at least, if not many, were able to evolve over time around their star. Their star doesn't have to be like the sun. It could be something different. But there could be this evolutionary process that made it so that planet could sustain life, whether that's life as we know it here or some other type of life, right? That's obviously an open question. But the point is that just sheer numbers alone tell us, we cannot be the only ones here.
Oh, you said it. You said we may not be. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Asterisk.
We don't know.
But I saw an image, and again, I'm an unfrozen caveman lawyer, so forgive me, but it was in the New York Times, one of the images that came out, and it said, this is the star, and this is the oldest star that's ever been recorded. And I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it traveled 13.9 billion years for the light to come here. Did I just make that up? That's what I read, right? 13.9 billion years, was that it?
I think it well. So we have a pretty good understanding that the age of the universe is 13.8 billion
Okay,
years.
so that's right.
So it's probably a little bit less than
All
that.
right.
But
I was close.
But you were close.
As a lawyer, I was close.
You know,
Writer, yeah.
a billion years among friends.
Yeah.
Among astronomers.
Among astronomer friends. But it absolutely is true that we have seen the most distant light, the most distant objects.
It's almost like the
that
origin right there of what we know.
Of what we know in terms of stars and
The
galaxies
starting
being
point
born.
of what we know.
Yeah.
And we were able to see that because of this. So
Exactly. That's a part of space we'd never seen before.
That's remarkable. And now we have the last image, and the last image is called
The Carina Nebula.
Carina.
Deep Field.
Oh, the deep field.
The deep field.
Deep field.
All right. So, what are we looking at with the deep field? Who wants to take this one? Stephanie, everyone's looking at you.
Oh,
Take it.
okay, I'm happy to. So this is a fantastic image, and I think as Amber was already saying earlier, the best thing that can be explained to you about this image is the sense of scale. So we're looking at a fantastic image. This is one of the first deep fields that we did with the James Webb Space Telescope. But by deep field, I want you to understand that this was only a mere few hours worth of time on this telescope. And we already are surpassing the capability of what the Hubble Ultra Deep Field was doing with weeks of time. And so it's fantastic, the capability that we have with the James Webb Space Telescope. But again, scale. This whole image, we see 10,000 galaxies in this one little glimpse of the sky. And this glimpse of the sky is a mere speck of sand as far as if you hold it out on the end of your arm and you put it against the sky, that's how much sky we're covering in this one tiny image.
And only what we can perceive with
Only
our
what we can
limitations of
perceive.
our human eye.
Yes, and we see 10,000 galaxies in this speck of sand, which just demonstrates how infinite the universe absolutely is.
And what I love about it is instead of it making us feel alone and isolated and overwhelmed and depressed, there's a sense of joy and discovery and connectedness that we came from star stuff and we are here doing the best we can to live this thing called life. And with this technology, we're able to see, like, an answer perhaps, how did life start? How did the universe start? How do black holes work? How do they interact? What are we made of? Is there life out there? And for those who are skeptical about investing in nerds and scientists, I hope this gives them some hope, some joy. There's a scene from this 80s movie, I don't know if you saw it, called Spies Like Us, starring Dan Aykroyd. You know where I'm going with there. Where literally there's 5 doctors in a room and there's a scene where they go, doctor, 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 doctor. And I've never had the opportunity to do that in real life, but I feel like now it's like doctor, 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 doctor. And all women, let's give a shout out to that. All women scientists here. I have 2 daughters and I hope they're watching. The final question, I could talk to you. I hope I did my part. I'm just a simple man, but I'm curious. We have William Shatner coming. And I'm going to make an assumption that, like me, you all are geeks for Star Trek and Star Wars. Shatner's going to be here. What question do you have for Shatner? I'm going to go across. Start in the back.
Oh,
Nicole.
brother. Oh gosh, on the spot. Oh man, I guess if he were really able to meet, an alien civilization, what would he say to them? What would be his first question?
First question.
Yes.
I would ask him what his favorite either Hubble or James Webb Space Telescope image has been to date.
Oh, on message. Emma.
I would ask him this question of whether or not he thinks there's life in the universe and how common it might be.
Laura.
I think if he could go anywhere in space, where would he want to go?
Doctor.
Doctor. I wasn't asked that, so now I have to think about something quick. So if he could build a spaceship, where would he travel to visit?
I will ask him these questions. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for the work. Thank you so much for the nerdiness. Thank you for explaining it to us. Thank you for connecting the dots to so many of us who are just wowed by these images and want to know the science behind it. And your session earlier today was jam-packed. So you all are the rock stars of South by Southwest. You can see our complete schedule of upcoming studio interviews on our website at southbysouthwest.com/studio. Give it up for the NASA scientists, everybody. This interview and all these interviews are going to be live streaming during the event on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SXSW. I'm your host, Wajat Lee, and thanks for watching.